Have you ever noticed something strange about human behavior? The loudest person in the room is not always the most respected. In fact, many times, it's the quiet one, the person who speaks the least, the person who observes more than they talk, the person who sits calmly while everyone else tries to prove something. And somehow, when that quiet person finally speaks, everyone listens. But why? Why do people often respect those who talk less? Why does silence sometimes carry more power than words? The truth is, quiet people trigger something deep inside the human mind, something psychological, something instinctive. And once you understand this, you'll start seeing quiet people very differently, because their silence isn't weakness. In many cases, it's power. Think about the last time you were in a group conversation. Maybe it was at work, maybe with friends, maybe in a classroom or meeting. Usually, there are a few people who talk a lot. They dominate the conversation. They share opinions constantly. They try to be funny, impressive, or interesting. And then there's someone else, someone who mostly listens. They don't interrupt. They don't compete for attention. They don't feel the need to prove anything. At first, people barely notice them. But over time, something interesting happens. People start respecting them, not because they're loud, not because they're dominant, but because their silence creates something powerful: mystery. And human beings are naturally drawn to mystery. In this video, we'll explore 8 powerful psychological reasons why quiet people often gain more respect than loud ones. Some of these reasons may completely change the way you see silence, because sometimes the people who say the least are the ones who understand the most. Lesson 1. Silence creates mystery. One of the most powerful psychological effects of quiet people is mystery. Human beings are naturally curious creatures. When someone talks constantly, we quickly understand them. We know their opinions, their stories, and their personality. But when someone is quiet, we don't fully know them, and the human brain hates incomplete information. So what happens? People start wondering, what are they thinking? Why don't they speak much? Are they observing something we're not noticing? This curiosity makes people pay more attention to them. Think about a meeting at work. If one person talks constantly, eventually people stop listening. But if someone stays quiet the entire time and then suddenly speaks with one clear, thoughtful comment, everyone notices, because their words feel rare and intentional. Mystery naturally creates respect. And that's why silence can be powerful, because when you speak less, your words carry more weight. Here is something most people don't realize. Lesson 2. Quiet people appear more emotionally controlled. Another reason quiet people gain respect is emotional control. People who talk too much often reveal their emotions quickly. They react immediately. They argue quickly. They respond without thinking. But quiet people usually pause. They observe. They process. Psychologically, this signals something important: self-control. And self-control is one of the traits humans respect the most. For example, imagine 2 coworkers receiving criticism from their boss. One reacts instantly. They defend themselves, complain, or get emotional. The other stays calm. They listen, they respond thoughtfully. Which person seems more mature? Which one seems more confident? Most people instinctively respect the person who remains composed because emotional control suggests inner strength. Quiet people often appear calmer, more grounded and less reactive, and in a world full of impulsive reactions, calmness stands out. Lesson 3. Quiet people observe more than they speak. Talking constantly requires attention, listening requires awareness. Quiet people often spend more time observing. They notice body language, they notice tone, they notice patterns in behavior. This gives them a deeper understanding of situations and people. For example, in a social group, someone who talks nonstop might miss subtle changes in the room, but a quiet observer may notice tension, discomfort, or hidden emotions. Over time, people sense this awareness, and they begin to see quiet individuals as perceptive and wise. Because someone who observes deeply often speaks with insight when they finally choose to talk. And insight commands respect, but the truth goes even deeper. Lesson 4. Speaking less makes words more valuable. When something is rare, it becomes valuable. This principle applies to almost everything in life. Gold is valuable because it's scarce. Time is valuable because it's limited. And words are powerful when they are used carefully. People who talk constantly dilute the impact of their words. But quiet people create the opposite effect. When they speak, others assume the message must be important. Imagine a team meeting where one person rarely talks. After 30 minutes of listening, they finally say, "I think we might be missing a key problem." Immediately, the room becomes quiet. Why? Because their silence made their words feel significant. This psychological effect is called perceived authority. Speaking less can actually increase the value of what you say. Lesson 5. Quiet people feel less needy for attention. Respect is strongly connected to self-sufficiency. People who constantly talk, interrupt, or seek attention can sometimes appear insecure. It may feel like they are trying too hard to be noticed. Quiet people often send the opposite signal. They appear comfortable without constant validation. They don't need approval every few minutes. They don't chase attention, and psychologically, this independence is attractive. For example, in social groups, the person trying hardest to be funny or impressive often gets less respect, but the person who simply exists calmly in the background often seems more confident. Because they are not performing, they are simply being themselves. And authenticity creates respect. This is where things get interesting. Lesson 6. Silence suggests intelligence. There's a common perception in human psychology. People often associate quietness with thoughtfulness. When someone pauses before speaking, we assume they are thinking deeply. When someone listens carefully, we assume they are analyzing. Of course, this isn't always true, but perception strongly influences respect. For example, imagine two students in a classroom. One talks constantly and answers every question quickly. Another speaks only occasionally, but when they do, their answers are clear and insightful. Which student seems smarter? Often the quiet one, because their silence suggests careful thinking, and thoughtful people are usually respected. Lesson 7. Quiet people Avoid unnecessary conflict. Many arguments happen because people react instantly. Someone says something offensive. Another person responds emotionally, and suddenly a conflict begins. Quiet people often pause instead of reacting immediately. They listen, they reflect, they choose their response carefully. This behavior reduces unnecessary drama, and people naturally respect individuals who stay calm during tension. Imagine a heated discussion where everyone is arguing loudly, and one person simply stays calm, listening. When they finally speak, they say something thoughtful that lowers the tension. That person becomes the stabilizing force in the room, and stability creates respect. But the deepest reason might surprise you. Lesson 8. Silence shows inner confidence. The most powerful reason quiet people gain respect is confidence without noise. Many people talk constantly because they want reassurance. They want others to agree with them. They want to prove their intelligence or importance. But quiet individuals often feel less pressure to prove anything. Their silence says something powerful. I don't need to compete for attention. And this type of confidence is rare, because true confidence doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simply exists quietly, and people can sense it. When someone appears comfortable with silence, it signals emotional strength, and emotional strength earns respect. Here is the deeper psychological truth about silence. Human beings constantly evaluate social power. We subconsciously judge who seems confident, who seems secure, who seems emotionally stable. Loudness does not always signal power. Sometimes it signals insecurity, but calm silence often signals inner control. And people instinctively respect those who appear in control of themselves. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you felt pressure to speak more, to prove yourself, to explain everything you think? Maybe you believed silence meant weakness. Maybe you worried people would overlook you, but the truth is, silence can be strength. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you choose when to say it. And that choice is power. The world often rewards noise, but respect is rarely about who speaks the most. It's about who speaks with intention. Quiet people remind us of something important. You don't need to dominate every conversation. You don't need to prove your intelligence every moment. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is listen, observe, think, and then, when the moment is right, speak with clarity. Because in a world full of noise, the person who understands the power of silence often becomes the person everyone respects. And once you understand this, you may realize something surprising. Being quiet isn't a weakness. It might actually be one of your greatest strengths.